Hello, I'm Juliette Foster, and this is the European Magazine interview. Now, did you know that in 2022, the global iGaming industry was valued at around $70 billion? That by the end of 2023, it was worth over $85 billion? Or that by 2027, its value could top $125.6 billion. Well, that's good news for anyone involved in the sector, and even better news for a company whose growth has frankly astounded market watchers. Founded in 2016, Soft2Bet is an award-winning business whose cutting-edge, next-generation products and groundbreaking player experiences has transformed the iGaming sector. Well, Martin Collins is Soft2Bet's Chief Business Development Officer, and I'm delighted to say that he now joins me. Martin, it is very, very good to see you. Now, what I want you to do is take me through the numbers. I need you to take me through the numbers so that you can explain Soft2Bet's growth trajectory and why you think that's sustainable and how well positioned the company is to take advantage of that 2027 valuation, because that is a big number, $126.5 billion.
Absolutely, it's a big number, but I think where we need to start, Juliette, is we need to look at the overall gambling number, both online and retail. Now, prior to COVID, online accounted for 16, 17, maybe 18% just in the run-up to COVID of the overall wallet. But what's happened is with COVID, okay, there's been obviously a spike in growth with online, and we're now up at maybe 23, 24%. And that continues to grow year on year. It becomes a bigger number every single year, even though the overall is growing as a whole. So the ultimate accolade that I can indicate to this is that online is growing faster than retail, and therefore they have a bigger chunk of the overall pie. When we combine that with jurisdictions regulating, additional jurisdictions regulating on a year-by-year basis, it means that actually that trajectory is going to increase even more. So as a consequence of that, we understand even if we stayed within our existing addressable market, we would grow. But we're also adding additional markets to our portfolio as well, which in line with these numbers, assuming that we're successful, means that we can grow as well. So that's what underpins our entire growth strategy.
It's really interesting as well because, yes, you have been on this growth trajectory, but at the same time, COVID was a huge spur. And for some companies, they've actually found that with the epidemic now over, things may have actually gone back. But you've gone in the opposite direction. You're still rising.
Well, it's interesting, right, that you should say that it seems to be regressing. I would disagree with that. If you look at New Jersey and the US, for example, as a jurisdiction, online is now more GGR, gross gaming revenue, on a month-by-month basis than retail is. That kicked in October 24 and consistently now outperforms retail. So I would, certainly in our industry, I can't talk for other industries, but in our industry, it's eclipsing it and continuing to grow at a faster pace than retail is. So, and by the way, retail continues to grow as well. I think that's important to say. It just doesn't grow as quickly as online is. So the premise that it is slowing down or it's starting to regress from COVID, I disagree with that. I don't think within our industry that's the case. Absolutely
right. So you've actually gone against that perception in some quarters. But look, let's take a look at Soft2Bet in terms of what it does, because it's fair to call it a turnkey solutions provider. In other words, clients are given ready-to-use products or services, and your company actually handles the design and implementation. Very, very simple. Why do you think the market has embraced this concept? I mean, you're an industry veteran. You must have had a bit of scepticism initially.
So I've been in the industry for 20 years, 20 plus years.
Which makes you a veteran.
Yeah, I suppose, yes. Yeah, let's... yes, I suppose
let's not beat about the bush on that.
Absolutely. So traditionally, platform providers like ourselves have had a very specific offering to provide to the customer. Now, what we did as an organisation is we looked at what was being offered and how platform providers within our industry differentiated themselves. And the simple fact of the matter is that there wasn't massive differentiation beyond price. So therefore, the offerings that were being given were very, very similar to one another. There might be little things here and there, but very, very similar, Juliette. So what we realised is that ultimately the UI UX, the customer experience within our industry, was 10, 15, 20 years old in some cases, and the expectation of the customer had changed because unfortunately I'm not a mobile native, okay, but I can talk about my children and I can talk about 25 to 35-year-olds who grew up with a mobile in their hand, which I didn't. But
that's called the generation gap.
Absolutely, yes. But the fact of the matter is their expectation of their mobile experience is very, very different to what mine is. What they expect when they download an app and engage with it is entirely different to what, as an industry, we were providing. So what we did is we went away and we built a UI UX that actually engages with customers and drives engagement, loyalty, and recurring customers coming back to the app time and time again. We often look at when the customer engages with the brand, and that tends to be in the evening when they're sitting watching TV on their couch. And what we realised is that actually when they're sitting on their couch and they're watching TV, they're engaging with apps on their mobile. And that could be TikTok, it could be Instagram, it could be Netflix, and we realised that's who we're competing with.
And that's quite interesting that you see them as your main rivals rather than other iGaming companies.
No, absolutely, because the thing is that traditionally the engagement with the customer within our industry has been very transactional. And we wanted to move away from that and actually build loyalty, engagement from a long-term perspective so that the customer comes back time and time again. And that's what we did, Juliette. We created gamified experiences within the iGaming experience in order to, and these are free to play as well. So these experiences, what they did is they took the casino and the sports betting side of our business and they provided something a little bit softer. They provided engagement to the customer that didn't cost them anything, and they were rewarded back within the casino and the sportsbook. So as a consequence, we saw our screen time go from 15 minutes prior to gamification to up over an hour and 15 minutes. So we saw true impact, and what we also saw is our brand equity increase massively as well. So traditionally in our industry, operators would spend a lot of time acquiring new customers. That would be the focus. Now, of course, we want to do that, but at the same time, we want to deliver such an experience that the customer comes back time and time again.
Yeah.
So
it's understanding their behaviour, basically.
Absolutely, and it's much easier to engage with a customer who already knows your brand and your product than somebody who doesn't. So this is what we wanted to concentrate on.
So it sounds like a healthy quid pro quo here, because on the one hand, you're understanding their behaviour. They sense that you get them, so they're coming back because you're not having to discover each other, so to speak.
Absolutely, and if our CPO was here today, he would talk about personalised experiences. So you have a lot more data on the customer as well, and therefore you can deliver something to them that resonates immediately with them because you understand how they interact with the brand, you understand how they interact with the gambling side of the offering, and also the gamified side of the offering. So that gives you much more data in order to deliver something that is specific to them.
But do you think that understanding the behaviour of your customers, whether they're gaming or not, just doing it for recreational purposes, whatever, is actually helping you to actually lead that transformation in the iGaming industry? And do you think that from your experience, there are lessons that you can learn from other sectors that can be incorporated into the business?
Okay, so this is a really interesting topic. Everybody talks about the Netflix recommendation engine and how wonderful it is. And I think for some people it works very well. I'm not sure it works for me. I don't know if that's because my children use my Netflix account, but it doesn't work for me, right? And
Kids have got a lot to answer for with these things.
Absolutely. So, and it's exactly the same. Listen, we're very much in the infancy with these things. Okay, AI is growing on a strong and consistent basis, probably faster than anything else we've seen in the past. So it's very, very important that you can utilise that data and deliver something specific to the customer. Now, that could be on the basis of a recommendation. It could be on the basis of a particular journey. People use sites in different ways, or an app in a different way. They navigate it differently from each other. So therefore, if that's the case, and you have that data and you understand how they use it, you should make it easier for them to use the app the way that they want to use it. You can literally create a experience for the customer that is honed for them, and that everything that they're looking for, they get quicker. Everything that they want to happen happens, and they don't get a surprise. Everything is normal for them. It normalizes the entire experience with the app. And this is going to become more powerful, as I said. I said at the minute there's challenges with it because it's new.
Yeah,
okay,
but that would always be the case when something is new, surely.
Absolutely, but the wonderful thing with AI and machine learning is that it continues to evolve. And I suppose this is where the risk comes in. But that's where the opportunity comes as well, right? Always with risk you have opportunity.
Of course.
But the personalisation of the app, of the experience for the customer is vitally important, again, in order to drive that engagement and have the customer returning time and time again. And some people may think that when I say returning time and time again, I mean every day. I don't mean every day. Some customers come to our brands 2 or 3 times a year for something specific. And for example, the Grand National, everybody in the UK bets on the Grand National, right? So they come 2 or 3 times a year. So it's not, and again, that's a personalised experience because we know when they're going to come.
Yeah.
You see,
I know exactly what you're getting at there. And I do want to look at the subject of AI because it has been incredibly transformative. But also as well, what you've just said, it reminds me of how sectors outside of iGaming, they are learning from what you're doing. And that leads me on to the subject of the collaborations with companies outside the iGaming sector. I mean, what is it that could actually enhance your offerings or market presence? And I'm thinking specifically about Amazon Web Services, because again, the two things, Soft2Bet and Amazon Web Services, seem so separate from each other, but clearly there is something there.
No, for sure there is. The first thing to point out is that the hosting, which AWS is, it really depends upon the regulation. So, for example, in New Jersey, you need to host on-premise within New Jersey itself, so therefore you can't use the cloud. But of course, you can utilise the cloud in other jurisdictions. It depends upon the regulation and the restrictions that they place upon it. So yeah, of course, listen, we, like any tech business within the world, hosting is very, very important. We're operating in 19 different jurisdictions, so therefore we need to be flexible. The amount of people that are utilising our services is growing day on day, week on week, month on month, so therefore the infrastructure is very, very important, and it needs to be firstly secure from a security perspective, but it has to scale as well. So for sure AWS would be a partner that we could work with, absolutely. But maybe another way to look at it, Juliette, is that let's take casual gaming, for example. We spoke about UI UX earlier. Now, what casual gaming has done is created mechanics within their experience that are probably second to none, in all honesty. If you think back, it's not so popular now, but Candy Crush. Now, Candy Crush is an excellent example of engaging with a customer and having them, again, come back time and time again. So we have done partnerships with businesses within casual gaming in order to take advantage of the mechanics that they've created. Again, all around engagement, all around experience.
Yeah, just deepening that understanding of the customer.
Absolutely, and making the experience of the customer less transactional. That's the most important thing.
I mean, let's stay with that as well, because look, at the end of the day, what drives this, okay, apart from the technology, is data and analysing it. And, you know, what I need to understand, given that you're operating across different platforms, is how do you use that data, that information to actually inform, to shape strategic decisions, bearing in mind you're working across a number of jurisdictions, and of course there's the regulation to balance or to bake in to your strategic decisions.
So it's really interesting, and this is a key part of my role in the team that works for me, that we need to understand exactly how we are going to grow in a particular jurisdiction, Juliette. So there's 3 ways you can go into a market. Okay, we could go B2C if we wanted and run a brand by ourselves. We could find a partner, okay, and do B2B, or we could acquire. Okay, so we could go into a market and we could acquire somebody. All 3 are viable, but all 3 are viable in particular situations. So therefore, you have to analyse the market. You need to see who's already operating there. You need to see how they've localised, and then you need to build a plan in order to be able to attack the market yourself. We've just done this recently with New Jersey. We plan to launch there in July, August, summer 25. And we went through a long process because it's relatively complicated. You have to do a market access deal with a local retail partner, the third parties that you need to deal with in order to be compliant.
It's federal and state law, basically.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. The third parties you have to deal with are very different from Europe, and it's much more complicated. And we went through a long process in order to understand how we could be successful there. Now,
How long did the process take?
I think it would take about 12 months, easy, in order to understand where the opportunity truly lies. So when you're analysing your competition, when you're analysing the people that have entered the market most recently and what their trajectories look like and why that's been the case, whether it's good or bad, looking at different situations, because the market changed a lot in the last 2-3 years, because a lot of people have actually pulled out of the US, and that plays into our thinking that actually there's an opportunity there as well.
So opportunities in chaos, disruption.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a lot of people will look at it and think that, you know, we're a little bit crazy. I disagree. I think there's an opportunity there. I believe, again, going back to what we spoke about with regards to non-transactional engagement with the customer is even more important in the US. I'll give you an example. If I'm in New York and I'm driving into New Jersey, you come out at the New Jersey Turnpike when you go through the Lincoln Bridge, the Lincoln Tunnel, sorry, and there's always a big billboard there when you come out the other side, and it's one of these ones that spin round. And last May when I was there, Fangio had an advertisement, and it was deposit $5 and get 500. Now, just to give you an idea, that is unsustainable, entirely unsustainable. But it works for Fangio because they're trying to get market share. What I'm saying is now clearly that's a transactional relationship that's been built. What I'm saying is I want people to come to our site, the site that we're going to launch into New Jersey, because they're engaged. And then we'll continue to engage them with the experience and not have to make offers like this in order to bring them to the table. And then they'll come back time and time again, not because we're giving them free money, but because they enjoy the experience, they're engaged with the brand. And this is really, really important.
Right, but that's where the AI comes into it, and that really leads into the next question. It is how you use that AI to enhance the user experience, so that at the end of the day, the user comes out of this thinking, wow, this is great, I want to come back.
Yep. So what we do is we have a team of data scientists, as you can imagine, who are building alternative journeys on the basis of the cohorts. So cohorts is ultimately deep segmentation, so that a customer goes into a particular bucket or group depending on how they interact with the brand. So if a customer comes in and does X, Y, and Z, then they'll go into a group with people that do X, Y, and Z. But if you do A, B, and C, you'll be in a different group. And then what you do is you iterate. So A, B, and C may go A, B, C, F, whereas X, Y, and Z may go X, Y, and Z, G. And then it creates another group. And because of AI, because of machine learning, you can go right down to the nth degree on this.
So it's incredibly forensic.
Absolutely. And then you build individual journeys depending upon which cohort the customer finds themselves. And that delivers the personalised experience.
And it's generating new data all the time, because there will be variations on customer behaviour.
Absolutely. With every login, with every interaction, with every click, you have new data that you can utilise.
Right, but then surely there is that danger of data overload, information overload, bearing in mind that, well, at least the next point then, are there emerging technologies, so to speak, that can actually absorb that overload that you're aware of, which will have a significant impact on iGaming generally? But, you know, you guys are into this at a deep down level, so maybe you've kind of sniffed this out before the rest of the world.
If I went to my data department and said there's a potential for overload of data, I think they would certainly say that's impossible.
Impossible.
The more data we have, the better. And again, it simply comes down to infrastructure. So if you have the correct infrastructure in place in order to support the level of data that you're generating, and you're
Right,
okay.
but are you changing the infrastructure? How often is that infrastructure reviewed?
It's reviewed consistently, absolutely, and we have the
Every
ability.
few months?
Well, not every day. We have the
Every
ability.
day.
We have the ability for our infrastructure to scale up and scale down depending upon
Right.
the demand that's put upon
So
it.
for you, the more data you get, the
Yes.
happier you are.
Absolutely, well, certainly these guys in order to build more pertinent journeys
Right.
for the customers.
But
Yes.
are there emerging technologies that, if you look at it in terms of experiences and journeys, but emerging technologies that can perhaps add more to the package that you're aware of and that are getting you really excited? It's like, when can we launch? When can we do this?
So there's constant advancements within AI, and it's something that our product team are consistently looking at. Our focus, if we see something that comes onto the market that we think can significantly move the dial in terms of the customer experience, then we're all over it, Juliette. Our raison d'etre is all about what the customer experiences when they come onto our app. This is the key element.
So it's the customer experience that effectively shapes the AI rather than the AI so much looking for the opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I mean, how do you see AI shaping the development, the design and the growth of your products?
So it's really interesting, right? So in the last sort of 12 months, we've started using AI. As I told you before, probably the number one pillar within our business is art and design, okay, and how that interacts with the UI UX. It's really very important to us, and I've never worked at a business that has so many art directors, so many designers. It's incredible, and they literally sketch everything from scratch. And this is really important because ultimately that's what the customer engages with. Now, what I've seen is that AI can help that. Okay, now, can AI do that? It probably can, but probably not to the level that we want it to at the moment.
At the moment, yeah.
Okay, because
that's always the caveat.
Absolutely, because what we want is we want the quality there to have an emotional element to it. Somebody that really felt it and pushed this idea forward, this story of a character or a brand, and pushed it forward. And at the moment, again, I feel that an individual who's pushing that, who's felt it, who's came up with the idea and the concept, is what sets it apart. Now, don't get me wrong, we have taken things like this and we've added AI to it. In Ontario, we have a brand called 2Bet. So Toonie is a $2 coin in Canada. So we wanted something localised. And if you look at that site, what you can see is that the banner at the top of the site or the app has been built on AI. And everything else around it is very, very emotional and very individual. So we've combined it both together. But again, going back to my point, I think that emotional element that you're giving to the customer makes a big difference. That's what they feel. They buy into the story, the emotion. So therefore, I still think there's a place for people. Although AI is making things easier.
Yeah, because
for
it's certainly seen as the job taker rather than the job creator. But I mean, just in the time that we've been together, you guys at Soft2Bet, you really get the sheer power of this technology and its potential in your bit of the iGaming world. Do you think that your industry generally gets it, the sheer scale, the sheer potential? Because you're being very innovative in the way that you're looking at it, in the way that you're using it, and the questions you're asking about the future, how it can actually shape your sector.
I can talk about Soft2Bet and I can talk about there's definitely innovative organisations.
But do they get it?
Do they get the customer experience?
Well, the sheer power of the AI technology and how it can fuse together with the customer experience and really create something that's extraordinary, dynamic.
I think some do, but I think if you looked at any industry, Juliette, that would be the case. You're going to have some people who are at the forefront of technology and trying to drive innovation. And then you're going to have the people that sit behind them and see what happens and then run with it when they know it works. And then you'll have the other 50% behind that, taking their time in order to catch up in 3, 4, 5 years' time.
See, that sounds quite Darwinian to me, survival of the fittest.
Yeah, no, for sure.
The weak will die.
Absolutely, but this is the thing, like, what's really important is if you look at again, not just our industry's got some examples, but 3D. Everybody thought 3D experiences were going to be the way to go forward, and I'm talking about 10 years ago. You know, there there was 3D poker rooms, there was 3D e-commerce sites. You know, every industry had this. But then it fell away because people weren't all that interested. They actually just preferred a flat site, a good user experience, buy the product and leave. This whole experience was too much at that particular time. So I can understand why there's a reticence, because what you don't want to do is go and invest a hell of a lot of cash into something, okay, and it not to work.
Yeah, but there's always going to be that risk, regardless of your sector.
Absolutely, right. And like I said to you, that what we've done with AI is we've combined it with that emotional, human interaction and human understanding and emotion, and we see that working at the moment. I think it will go further, because I think that every week, every month, AI is improving and becoming better for sure. I think that percentage will change. I agree. Okay, but it's very, very important for us to be at the forefront of innovation within our industry, for the simple reason that we believe that customers are looking for something new, and people are tired of the experiences that they have on a day-to-day basis. They want to see something new. They want to be engaged, and we want to be there in order to deliver that. That's at the core essence of our organisation.
But look, at the heart of it is the I word, innovation. It's cropped up in the conversation. Let's go back to last year, because that was when you launched the $50 million Euro fund.
Yes.
The aim being to encourage gaming sector innovation, which probably seems a bit weird, because some people say, well, hang on a minute, isn't there enough innovation going on already? The fact that you've launched this fund appears to suggest not.
Well, the thing is, there's lots of different areas within the industry, and you can't touch them all. Okay, regardless of how many staff you have, how innovative you are, you can't be everywhere. So we created Soft2Bet Invest, which you rightly said is a 50 million fund, and what we wanted to do was be very unlike the funds that are in our industry. So what do I mean by that? Generally what happens is that you will pitch to a VC or whoever it is that's funding it, and you'll say, okay, I need X amount of money for X amount of equity, and you'll get that money, and you're expected to give them a return in a period of time. Okay?
So it's a bit like Dragon's Den, it's set in the iGaming world.
Absolutely, right? Now, unless that individual is heavily involved in the industry, the likelihood of them bringing value to that business is relatively slim. What we realised is that we can give investment, but what we can also do is provide liquidity. So we can take their product, we can integrate it into ours, and we can battle test it. All the innovators, all the companies with innovative products within any industry will tell you the most difficult thing is to get a product battle tested in a real scenario, so that then they can go to multiple different customers and they can say, look, this works, and have data in order to show them how it works. Everything is just a concept before you actually do that. So what we realised is we can bring them in, we can have it tested, we can integrate it, and then we can put it into real life scenarios. And that's the whole idea of the fund, that we'll give them investment, they can continue to grow, but they can actually get battle testing at the same time.
Right. Do you think you'll grow the fund? 50 million is a lot of money, but
yes,
it probably looks very small if you take the entire value of the sector.
I think 50 million at the moment is
reasonable.
Is reasonable to start with. Okay, but knowing our organisation, yes, we will review it at some point for sure. But yes, at the moment, we believe that that's enough.
Okay, so that's the starting point, but it could get bigger. Let's look at MEGA.
Yes.
This is the Motivational Engineering Gaming Application. Bit of a mouthful.
Yes.
But why is it important to Soft2Bet's operations?
Okay, so MEGA is essentially all of our gamification engines. So all the mechanics, all the UI, UX that we've spoken about is encompassed within MEGA. Now, to give you an idea, when I first came to Soft2Bet almost 2 years ago, the gamification sat within our platform. So therefore, if somebody else wanted to use it externally, it was a very difficult process. They had to take our platform, our player account management system, and integrate that into their technology. But what we did is we decoupled it. So we took it out, and now the MEGA and all the content that comes with that is available via API. So you don't need to take our platform in order to do that. So all of the types of mechanics that we have, So whether it is City Builder, which is like a civilization builder, whether it's Casino Wars, whether it's bonus dice, whether it's the bonus crab that we have, which is a really nice story. We literally have crab machines in Cyprus, and customers can come in and they can actually control the crab machine and pick up balls, which then give them prizes. So, and again, it's quite nostalgic, but it's very impactful for the customer
Does remind
experience.
me of the Seaside Pier machine.
Absolutely, that's exactly what it is. And the strange thing about the claw is I thought it would be very specific to certain geos, but actually in all our geos it resonates very strongly. So we decoupled all of this, and customers can come along and they can engage via the APIs, and they can take what's already there off the shelf, or they can even design things by themselves, but it's available for them to take it. So we're taking what we've learnt through the more impactful UI UX, and we're trying to deliver it from a B2B perspective. That's what Mega's all about, and delivering customers that perhaps we don't have interaction with in other geos where we don't operate.
It's another way of reaching them, basically.
Absolutely, yes.
Which makes me wonder what comes out of Mega, the son of Mega. what is the son of Mega? Are you working on that at the moment?
No. So we just continue to add mechanics. Okay, so we're constantly adding mechanics. We have a a Coin Master game that we've added recently. Again, it's innovative, but we're taking inspiration from other industries. So there's already...
It sounds like you're taking inspiration from nostalgia. I talked about the Seaside Pier. It's a chance for you to go down memory lane.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for sure. Listen, it's very, very important that you provide experiences for customers that they understand.
And for all age groups, to make us all feel included in the journey.
Absolutely. This is really important as well, right? So some gamification will work with certain parts of your audience, but not others. So therefore, you need to multiply it and have different options for different parts of your audience.
I like the Seaside Pier. That suits my age group. But I mean, look, earlier in the conversation, we were talking about the different jurisdictions where you operate. I mean, you've got a footprint in Sweden, Romania, Canada, and Mexico. I'm sure that you're out to conquer the rest of the world, so keep us abreast of that journey. But I mean, are there other specific countries that are on your radar, and when do you think you're going to enter those markets?
Okay. As indicated earlier when you asked about the sort of business development process.
Yeah, because you've got New Jersey, which is coming
Absolutely.
very soon.
So New Jersey will be in the summer for sure, and that will be really interesting for us. But this process is a constant, ongoing process. So we constantly see opportunities put in front of us, whether, again, it's B2C, whether it's B2B, or whether it's an acquisition opportunity. We see these multiply every other day. People come to us and they say, we have this opportunity and we have to analyse it and understand it. So it's very, very important that the process, the analysis that you do is done properly. Because we've looked at jurisdictions, and what we've realised is that there's legislation in order to block marketing and advertising, for example. Now, if it's a market where we don't have any brand equity for whatever reason, there would be no point of us entering the market because we can't bring customers to our offering because you can't advertise. So that would block our willingness to go into a particular market.
But you keep an eye on it, though, because it's possible that things could change.
Absolutely. We keep an eye on it. Our compliance team are on top of these things, giving us updates on a consistent basis. We just recently launched in Nigeria, which is our first jurisdiction in Africa. And that's with a B2B partner. It's one of the largest media businesses in Nigeria called Channels TV.
And how easy was that?
Well, the license in that situation sits with Channels, okay, because they're the local partner there,
so
yes?
it made sense to go with them.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Again, B2C, B2B, acquisition. We chose Nigeria from a B2B perspective. And that created an opportunity for us to enter a market. They have TV channels within Nigeria and they have a lot of eyeballs on their content, so that brings an opportunity as well in order to advertise, etc., etc. So absolutely, that was an instance where we did a B2B partnership. So, and we're continuing to look at other areas of Africa as well. Nigeria's, from a gaming perspective, is probably the largest market, barring South Africa, okay, but it's probably the largest market in terms of engagement. The volumes are very, very interesting. You know, there's 220 million people
Yeah.
in Nigeria, so it's a big country.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that was an example where we used a B2B in order to enter the market. But we're constantly having these conversations. LATAM is very interesting for us as well. But again, we would probably look at that from a B2B perspective rather than B2C, because the simple fact is we don't have the localised knowledge.
And that's the point. It actually bleeds into the question I was going to raise with you about the local approach being the most effective, because yes, it does make sense. If you take the example of Nigeria, you've already got somebody on the ground already, so they're the navigator.
Yes. So I'll give you an example. Uri, our founder and CEO, when we're looking at a new market and we're going to enter there, we're looking at all the content that we can deliver in order to engage. Now, there might be localised providers that don't necessarily provide a big uptick in terms of revenue, but they are still expected to be there by the end user. They might not necessarily consume the content, but they expect it to be there. And Uri is always pushing us that from day one, we have all of the providers, regardless of the share of wallet that they're going to take.
And just for those who don't know, Uri is the founder of the company.
He's
he
the
and
founder.
his wife, yeah.
Absolutely, he's the founder and CEO, and he's like these things he's inspirational with, because ultimately what he's saying is if you don't have everything, regardless of the amount of revenue that it's going to generate, we won't see the level of engagement that we want, and he's absolutely spot on with that.
I mean, look, let's clear the smoke from the crystal ball and project into the future. So what is the long-term vision for Soft2Bet, and how do you think it's actually going to drive innovation within the iGaming industry?
So I think that we'll continue to grow. I think, as I said, we have 19 licenses at the moment. So we have an aspiration within the current addressable market that we have to be in podium positions. So we want to be 1, 2 and 3 in all the markets where we operate. That's really, really important for us. But at the same time, we will continue to grow our overall regulated footprint as well. So we tend to do, I think we did 6 markets last year. We'll do similar this year. So, and we'll continue to do that and expand the footprint overall, and then really drill down into the markets once they've been localised and get a strong position in each of the markets. So that's the goal. That's where we want to be.
But do you see the companies being at the heart of that iGaming landscape, because it is so interconnected? The vibe that I get from you is that you're saying, look, there is more to do. It can be connected in perhaps a better way, and we're the guys to do it.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, the fact of the matter is that from a regulated perspective, there's no harmonisation. Okay, so every market's different. Okay, and that's the same for localisation as well. What's expected in one market isn't expected in the other. But what we want to do is we want to be at the forefront of the way that the customer is interacting with the brand, with the app, with us. And bearing in mind, unlike many of our competitors, we're not a single brand operator. We even try to localise the brand. So I mentioned 2Bet in Canada.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example.
The Canadian coin.
Absolutely, right? So the locals, if you go round and you do some analysis of the locals, okay, Toonie, what is it? They all know. Okay, so this is really, really important for us, and this is at the forefront of our thinking, that ultimately each customer, each jurisdiction is different, and we want to provide something for them that resonates with them. That's at the heart of everything we do.
Okay, so work in the locality. Do not try to change it, except in a more interesting way. But
Absolutely.
once you find your partner.
Yes, I agree, absolutely, absolutely, I agree 100%.
Okay, look, we have to leave it there because sadly we have run out of time. But Martin Collins, thank you so much for joining us here. That was Martin Collins, who's the Chief Business Development Officer of Soft2Bet. I'm Juliette Foster, and this is the European Magazine Interview.